Hey everybody, it's Todd Allen. Just want to say, man, I've spent the last hour plus talking to Zach on $2 late fee. Great time, great conversation. Brought up things I hadn't thought about in a long time, and I hope everybody tunes in.
The stars have aligned, the world has come together, the planets, and Todd Allen, you are on $2 late fee. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Well, thanks for having me, man. I'm glad we finally were able to, make this, happen. We've been trying for a while.
I was just saying to Todd offline, I'm like, we had, I want to say 3 years ago, maybe possibly during the pandemic, we reached out, I reached out to him, and we connected, and next thing you know, we're like, hey, you got to come on the show. And one thing led to another. You had projects coming up, you had other things coming up in your life, and we made it happen today. But I think you were going to come on last year, and because you were going to come on and talk about the new movie you were in, Horizon,
Yeah, yeah,
and with Kevin, obviously Kevin Costner's film. I saw part one. I still have not seen part two yet. I loved part one.
yeah, good.
You
Thank you.
play Buckhout.
Buck out.
Yeah, and when you popped up on screen, I did that thing that Leonardo DiCaprio does in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where he points at the screen like, "I know that guy." You know. Can you talk a little bit about Horizon and your experience on that?
Yeah, well, it's my I'm in one and two.
Yeah,
Originally, I was one of a handful of people that were in all four of the Horizon movies.
right.
I don't know if that's still true. I may end up not in three, but back in four. I actually don't know. But I've shot one and two, and interestingly, the role in part two is five times bigger than what was in part one. So the only time I've seen it has been at the Venice Film Festival for the world premiere and then the Santa Barbara Film Festival for the domestic premiere. And that was about month and a half ago.
Right.
And part two really comes at you like a freight train because part one did the heavy lifting to set up all those story arcs. But yeah, I mean, Kevin and I go back. Well, this November it'll be 42 years,
Wow.
42. We met on Silverado.
I was literally I had that in my notes. I'm like, bring up Silverado.
Yeah, and we just immediately hit it off, and I got there. It was my fourth or fifth job as an actor, and interesting story. I actually had gotten cast in a Joel Schumacher movie
Okay.
with Demi Moore and the whole Brat Pack, right?
St. Elmo's Fire?
It was, and
What?
yeah, and I had gone to the Motion Picture Academy to hear Lawrence Kasdan speak, who had written, you know, Body Heat and The Big Chill and blah, blah,
Empire
blah.
Strikes Back.
Yeah, and right, and Indiana Jones.
Right, right.
And I just thought that guy was a great writer and a great filmmaker, and I
Agreed.
saw where he was going to speak. So I went, and at the end of it, he took some questions, and I didn't ask the question. Somebody else did. They said, "Well, Mr. Kasdan, what are you working on next?" And he goes, "Well, I'm writing a Western, and I'm really excited about. It's called Silverado." So
Wow.
being from Texas, right? I'm like, "Ah." So
Yeah.
after the event was over in the lobby, I elbowed my way through about 50 people and walked over and introduced myself. And I had not been in Hollywood very long.
Okay.
I mean, I was green, green, green. We shot it in 83, so this
Oh,
was 80,
wow.
80, 82, late 82.
Oh gosh. Okay.
And
Wow.
I'd been in Hollywood 6 months, literally.
Wow.
And I just decided I was going to be bold that day. And I walked over and introduced myself. I said, "Listen, man, my name's Todd Allen. I'm an actor. I haven't been here very long. I haven't done a lot. I've done a few, smaller things, but I'm from Texas, man, and I can ride the shit out of a horse. And if there's a part in Silverado for me, I'd love to do it."
Hell yeah.
And he laughed and we shook hands. and parted ways. A few months goes by. I get this cherry part in St. Elmo's Fire. And I've been a blessed individual my whole career. My first agent was a partner at the then biggest agency in the world, which was ICM.
Yeah.
I didn't even know who they were.
You're
The
like
day I
ICM.
signed,
Don't they make computers?
right, I signed the paperwork and I was like, I don't know who these guys are, but the building is nice. So,
Yeah.
so a couple of months go by, and along the way, I did a little guest star spot and a thing, and another small thing, and another movie, and I get this emergency phone call, and my agent says, "Look, I just got a phone call from the head of casting at Warner Brothers." And in those days, as a young actor, you didn't meet the head of casting of anything.
No.
You met a junior casting director, right?
Right.
The head of casting was up here. And she goes, "You're a director's request, but you have to be at Warner Brothers at 3 o'clock this afternoon. Can you get there?" And I went, "Well, what's it for?" And she goes, "It's a movie called Silverado, and Lawrence Kasdan has requested you specifically."
Oh my God.
So I go, "I can be there." And I go and I park and I walk into Warner Brothers, and I'm used to seeing, the lower tier casting people.
Right.
And the head of casting walks out and introduces herself, and she goes, "I'm going to walk you back."
No.
And I knew walking down the hall, I knew that my life was about to change. I didn't know what was going to happen, but I knew something was different.
Wow.
And so she walks me down the hall, walks me into Larry Kasdan's office. His brother Mark, who co-wrote that script, was in there. And he stands up, gives me a big hug, and he goes, "I remember talking to you that day."
Dude.
Shake hands with me. He goes, sit down, man." So I sit, and the casting director's sitting next to me. She's got pages in her hand, thinking that I'm going to read. I have not seen the script. I've not seen anything. And he says, "Tell me about yourself." So I start telling him about growing up in Austin, Texas, and going to the University of Texas and having a ranch as a kid and being able to fix the tractor and deliver a baby calf. And, I can ride a horse like a fiend. I'm really good as a horseman. And so we just start talking and chit-chatting, and he goes, "Tell me about your favorite Westerns." And so I tell him about, One-Eyed Jacks and Once Upon a Time in the West. And I start talking about these movies. And so he said, "Well, listen, this is great. I'm so glad you could come in here today, and thank you." And the casting director is looking at me like she doesn't know what's going on either. And I go, "Well, do you want me to read something, or do you want me to audition?" Because at that point in time, I was so new in my career, I had to read for everything.
Right.
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 And he goes, "No, welcome to Silverado."
Get the hell out of here.
No.
How do I know this is your horse?
Peyton was a drifter.
See, this horse loves me.
Emmett wanted justice.
Hanging around with you is no picnic.
Mal had a score to settle. And Jake was just plain crazy.
It used to be a peaceful town.
Join them for the ride of your life. Silverado, rated PG-13.
And the casting director looked at me like,
Like, who the hell are you? And what's
I
your
go,
phone
"Well,"
number?
I said, "Well, man, thank you so much. This is the greatest honor of my life. That's why I walked over and said something to you that day at the Academy 9 months ago." And he goes, "Well, I'm glad you did." So I leave and I'm walking out to my car, and man, I knew this is going to be a change in trajectory for me, maybe forever. I
Right.
just knew it. Hair on the back of my neck was standing up.
Yeah.
I get home, I call my agents, I tell them, they go, "Great, this is so exciting. You've got St. Elmo's Fire. Now you're gonna get Silverado." And about 2 days later, I get a phone call from them, and they say, "We just got your offer and your contract, and the shooting dates conflict.
With St. Elmo's. Yeah.
You cannot do Silverado. You're already under contract
Oh no.
on St. Elmo's." And I went like this. And I hung up. I didn't know what to do, but I was in a bit of a panic. I literally went to a church where I sometimes attended and spoke to the priest about it. And I called a couple of people, and everybody said, "Man, this happens sometimes in Hollywood. You know, it's just there's not much you can do." And so I thought about it, and I thought about it, and I didn't sleep, and I woke up the next day, and about 10 o'clock, I called my agent, and I said, "Hey, I have a question about my character that I need to ask Joel Schumacher. Could I have his phone number?" And she said to me, "Todd, I knew I was going to get this phone call because I know who you are. And under no circumstances can you call Joel Schumacher and ask to get out of that contract. You cannot do that. That's rule number one for a young actor in Hollywood. You do not do it." So she hangs up the phone. So I hang up. So I thought about it a little bit more, and I called another agent that was kind of on my team, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I go, "Hey, buddy, I'm trying to, so and so's not in her office, so I called you. I'm trying to get a hold of Joel Schumacher. I got a question about my character." And he goes,
Yes, yes.
"Buddy,
Oh,
I got the memo.
oh no.
You cannot call Joel Schumacher." So
Oh no.
I literally, I waited about 3 hours, waited till after lunch, and I called the head of the talent department, the co-head, who I knew a bit, who wasn't on my team, but he and I just got along.
Right.
And I'm 25 years old at this point, 24. And he says, sorry, I didn't mean this story to be this long, but
This
I'll tell
story
you.
is gold. I don't know. You keep going.
I call him and I go, "Hey, buddy, it's Todd. I'm trying to get a hold of Joel Schumacher, and nobody's in the office and nobody's returning my phone call, but I got a question. I need to ask him about the script and about my character." He goes, "Oh, yeah, here, buddy, here's his number." So he gives it to me.
Yes.
He gives it to me. And then I
Yes.
had the number, and then, the heart palpitations started like,
Oh,
am I really going to do this?
yeah. Yeah.
So decided I went and worked out. I went for a walk that evening. I thought I got to sleep on this. I got to pray about it. I got to
Right.
think about because if it really is rule 101, rule 1 that you don't do, I've only been here for a while
Right.
and I don't want to do something that's going to torpedo my career. And I woke up the next day and I literally got a legal pad and a pen and scripted out what I felt was important that I needed to say. And I took a deep breath, man, said a little prayer to the movie gods and called that phone number. And Joel Schumacher answered the phone. And I go, "Joel, it's Todd Allen, man. I just, how you doing?" He goes, "Oh, buddy, it's great to hear from you." And I said, "Listen, man, I just want to thank you so much for seeing something in me and casting me in that role." He goes, "Man, I'm excited. I'm looking forward to working with you.
Oh
This is going
no.
to be great." And I said, "Well," I said, "It is." I said, "But listen, there's something I need to talk to you about." And he says, "Fire away, buddy." And I go, so I tell him the story about hearing Kasdan speak and then getting that audition and then the conflict and the shooting dates. And I said, "I'm really in a quandary." And he goes, "Well, talk to me about that." And I said, "Well, I look at it this way, Joel." I said, "There's plenty of talented guys that can play this part in St. Elmo's Fire. And half of them were in the waiting room the day I got cast. But I feel like Silverado is my destiny." And I used that word. And there was about 5 seconds of silence. And he said, "Well, let me ask you a couple of things." I said, "Okay." He said, "Did your agents tell you not to make this phone call?" I said, "Every one of them, every one of them." He goes, "Well, young man, I'll tell you something. I believe in fate and I believe in destiny and I believe in following your stars and listening to that voice in yourself that's telling you which direction to go. And secondly, you got a huge set of balls for making this phone call."
Yeah.
And he goes, "And I like that." I like that you did it. Took a lot of courage for you. He said, so I'll tell you what, I'm going to let you out of your contract and you go do Silverado. And after you're done, let's have lunch and you tell me if it really was your destiny. And we did.
Wow.
We did. And I told him, yeah, it was. I've already been cast in the next movie with Kevin Costner, and he's like very quickly become my best friend. And I did 3 movies with Lawrence Kasdan following that, and I've done 5 with Kevin. And if I'm back in Horizon 3 and 4, that's 7. And it totally changed the trajectory of my entire career. So I I listen to that voice, when I hear it, and I act on it. So there you go.
One of the reasons why I knew having you on would be so great is because I had that feeling. I'm like, Todd's got a story to tell, and I know it's going to line up with what we're doing on this show. And I've got chills. I mean, I want to go deep into this, but what was the role in St. Elmo's Fire, or do you know who got your role in that movie?
I do, but I don't want to say it just out
Okay.
of fairness.
Okay. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
So did you think that that actor did a good job in St. Elmo's Fire?
I did. Yeah,
Okay.
no, he was actually probably a better choice than me.
Okay. Well, so then it was all meant to be.
Yeah, no, he did. He's great. He went on and had a really long, good career. And,
Okay, good.
and, I don't ever want to name, people like that,
No, of course not.
but,
I mean, no one likes to be known as second best. So
it wasn't even that,
I'm joking. I'm joking.
it wasn't that, I think what it was is, you know, and I miss this about acting. Now everything is self-tape this and put
Yeah,
yourself on and do that. But
right.
back in the day, you had to go in a room,
Right.
right? And what I lacked in experience, because I never was a theater major. I never did a school play. I fluked into the movie business, complete fluke, complete. Another instance where I heard that voice and felt that tap and pulled off the road one day unknowingly, and it was a movie set. And within 10 minutes, I thought, this is me. And I showed up in Hollywood with no experience and knowing no one. And
Wow.
within, 5 years or 4 years, I was starring in movies.
Yeah, you were.
So, I'm a big believer in that. You listen to that voice, but you got to act on it, right? It's your
You
instinct.
do. You do.
So
The universe will only pull you so far into what you want to do. You've got to act on it, and you've got, my wife has the best intuition in the world as far as I'm concerned. When she says something, I do it. If she says, yeah, you have to do this thing, then I do it. And
yeah,
90%, 95, 96, she'd probably say 100%, but 95% of the time she's right. And you've got to
yeah,
listen to that voice, And what I love about this story, though, is that you didn't just knee jerk. You actually, you sat on it. You gave it some time to meditate upon it,
I
basically.
did. I did.
And that is not typically the response. The response would be you got the number, call immediately. And then you're panicked. The person you're speaking to can tell, and it doesn't go the route you want it to. I mean,
Right.
Silverado is, in my opinion, there are some terrific 80s Western movies, but Silverado is my favorite of the 80s Western movies. It is
Yeah.
a masterpiece. I think
Yeah.
Lawrence Kasdan has a way. He made a movie called Grand Canyon that I absolutely,
I was in it.
I know. That's why I know you were.
Oh,
I know you were. That's why I brought it up. So I'm thinking, for the audience that were like, did they know this movie? Grand Canyon is one of my all-time favorite Kasdan films. I cry every time I watch that movie
yeah.
because there's certain moments, there's certain scenes, there's certain
You
song
know,
selections, et cetera, et cetera.
it's so funny, man. It's funny you bring that movie up because I had one scene,
Yeah.
right? I played this cop,
Yep.
and Larry Kasdan wrote that scene for me.
Wow. Really?
Yes. And he called me and said, I've written this scene. I want you to play it. And we filmed it in the middle of the night on Wilshire Boulevard, where I get out of that squad car and come to Mary Louise Parker's rescue and walk her down the sidewalk and all of that. And it was not long after the Rodney King beatings when we
Yeah.
shot that. So the
Right.
LAPD was under fire a lot. And, there's always bad apples in a group, but the rank and file LAPD guys are honorable, hardworking,
Yeah.
people.
Yeah,
And so
absolutely.
I went to Larry and said, I really want to do something with this guy. And he goes, what do you want to do? I said, can I have control over my wardrobe fittings and all of that? And he goes, yeah, yeah. So I buzzed my hair and kind of blonded it and highlighted it. And, I wanted to be the poster boy for what a great police officer was supposed to do. And I had him tailor my uniform, like just like everything was tight and fitted. And I took the gun belt home from the props department, and I went to military school, so I know how to polish a leather, belt like that. So I
Yeah.
took shoe polish and a cotton ball and spent hours polishing that gun belt and the badge and the shoes. And when I walked on that set, everybody was like, damn. And
Who's the
I
Ken
go,
doll?
yeah. And I wanted to do it because I'm a lifetime, member of the honorary member of the Fraternal Order of Police in Southern California.
Oh, wow.
I
Okay.
did charity events for them.
Okay.
And so I wanted to do something that spoke to that.
Right.
And
Honored that. Yeah.
Larry Kasdan let me do it. And you know what? I'll tell you something. It was just one scene, but that one scene in Grand Canyon, one scene got me every job I got for the next 10 years, literally.
I mean, from your words to, up and coming actors' ears, when it doesn't matter. It's not the size of the part, it's what you do with it. Right.
Yeah,
And, it's that speaks volumes. That movie, by the way, there are moments that that film is about single moments, you know, the scene where Steve Martin is talking to Kevin Kline about, life's answers or in the movies or something to that effect.
yeah, yeah,
Or the moment where Mary McDonnell sees her son going to camp and then flashing back to when he's a child, which I cry every time because I know my mom was that way with me,
yeah,
so it is those specific moments. The scene you have, it's a powerful scene, and
yeah.
Kasdan is one of those. I don't think I know he is appreciated in the film in cinephile views. People who love cinema appreciate Lawrence Kasdan, but I think in the broader scope, he gets overshadowed by other bigger names, quote unquote bigger names that had come out around that time, the Spielbergs, the Lucas, etc. But
Sure.
but I'll go back to Silverado. That movie's a masterpiece, and the
Yeah.
fact that you are in that film, and you're working with at the time, it was a big chill cast, and
Oh, all of them. Yeah. And let me just tell you, part of the reason Kevin and I bonded the way we did was, he now I've worked with him 3 times as a director. He's directed me 3 times. But back then, he wasn't thinking about being a director. He was just trying to, act.
right,
And
right.
I would watch him, and he would go to Lawrence Kasdan with idea after idea after idea after idea. And when we would be in a scene where there were, 4 or 5 people in the scene, he knew everybody else's dialogue too. And he would, and in mine in particular, because we had befriended one another, he would come over to me and he'd go, hey man, look, I've been thinking about this. There's a moment when when you get to that window, you should take the barrel of the gun, the butt of the gun, and break the glass out and reach through there and start shooting at me. And he goes, it's a cool moment, right? Because I wasn't going to do that.
Yeah.
And he goes, go say that. Ask Larry if you can do that, but don't tell him I said anything. So, so I'd go, oh, okay. So every day it was like, another 5 ideas and another 6 ideas and go, hey man, I thought about this. What it'd be cool if you did this. And I'd go, yeah, and he'd go ask Larry. So I'd go over there, and finally, after about a week of it, Lawrence Kasdan looks at me and he goes, please stop talking to Costner.
Reminds me of like Roxanne or something, Cyrano de Bergerac, you know.
Yeah. But, I
That's
learned
great.
so much as a young actor, because I hadn't done very much at that point. And
Yeah.
I, I'm sitting there with Brian Dennehy and Glover and Kevin Kline and
Yeah.
Scott Glenn
Scott
is
freaking Glenn.
the most focused human being you will ever be around. I mean, literally, he's out there in the street with, as if he had in his Western garb, but as if he had a machine gun, and he's pointing his toe and he's moving his body like this and going like that. And I go, Scott, what are you doing? And he goes, well, I spent 6 months with special forces, special operators in Germany, and I'm just trying to remember all the shit I learned.
Oh
And
crap.
he was that guy.
Did you walk away slowly like Homer Simpson into the bushes?
Oh
Like,
man, I was like, okay, man.
just don't kill me.
Yeah, but he's super cool.
Yeah,
Super
yeah.
cool.
I have a friend of mine. She was in a movie with him not that long ago, maybe 10, well, 10 years ago. Said the same thing that he's just, like so focused. And so Silverado, did you fulfill your childhood fantasy of being in a Western then? I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
literally.
I did. And then went on, of course, to do Wyatt Earp, and that,
Yes.
that was a whole other thing. And that was the second time I got to work with Gene Hackman, bless his soul.
I know I want to talk about that too. And Annabeth Gish was on our show, by the way, a couple years back to talk a little bit
Love
about
her.
Wyatt Earp. She's so great, so talented. Anyways,
Well, turns out the stunt coordinator on Horizon is a guy named Wade Allen. And
okay.
so Wade and I meet, and we hit it off, and he's working me through this sequence I have to do where I kill this drifter in part two. And, I have to throw this guy to the ground and then draw and shoot 3 times, and all this. And so Wade and I are working real closely together, and he goes, by the way, you may be my brother from another mother because we have the same last name. And he goes, and also, my wife. And I go, who's your wife? He goes, Annabeth Gish. And I go, what? What?
Oh, what?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Wild.
So I went on social media and messaged her and said, I'll tell my brother hello.
Yeah, and she's very active on there, and she's good. Wow, that's fantastic, man. That's so
Yeah,
wild.
yeah.
Yeah, let's roll it back a little bit to Gene Hackman because you did Uncommon Valor with him for the first film that you starred with him in. That movie, by the way, I believe is getting a 4K release later this year. I think it's
I
coming
heard this.
in an underappreciated film by far, I think, when it comes to war films. Your experience on that, you had only done a handful of movies up until that point.
I think it might have been my second or third job.
Yeah,
Might have
right.
been my second. And interestingly, nobody does it anymore. But back then, I would, I was raised a certain way. And so I had printed up, note cards with my name on them. And I would finish a movie and I would write the director and the producer and the casting director a handwritten note and tell them how much I enjoyed it and thanked them so much. And the phone would ring, and it would be like, the director, and he would go, nobody writes notes like this, man. He goes, this is just amazing. And he goes, and that is how I got. So my first job ever was 48 hours.
Right. I was like,
And
how do we
then,
bring this up? But yeah.
and then, but I got Uncommon Valor because the director, I think it was Walter Hill, who I'm still friends with today, called the director of Uncommon Valor and said, I got the kid for you. He's a great guy. Just meet him. Just meet him. I got cast. That director called Jonathan Demme, who directed Swing Shift,
Yep.
and he goes, I got the guy for you. And the first 5 or 6 movies before I got to Silverado were because directors were calling their friends and saying, you got to hire this guy. No joke. Nobody does that anymore. I still write notes to people sometimes, but that's how I really did it. And it was before, email and, texting and all that. So that was my kind of my choice. But um that's how I did it. But yeah, working with Hackman, to get back to that, was he was just a bigger than life. He was like 6'4".
Oh,
He's a
really?
big dude. Yeah,
Oh,
he's a
okay.
big guy. And he just commanded respect. Just
Yeah.
like you can't believe. And he and I would be sitting in the makeup trailer putting on, camo paint and talking about stuff. And he wanted to know about, my family ranch in Texas, and we talked about New Mexico and, blah, blah, blah. And he just couldn't have been a greater guy. And then we had, Randall Tex Cobb on that movie,
Yeah.
who was a piece of work. I'll put it to you that way. And Randall, liked to party,
He
and
looked it.
Randall decided that he didn't want to be in Hawaii anymore while where we were filming.
Okay.
And he snuck out of his hotel after several cocktails and made it to the airport and was trying to get on a plane, and the producers were trying to find him, and they found him, and they called the security, and they locked him down at the
What?
airport and dragged him back, put him to bed, made him go to sleep. I mean, it was like that, it was craziness.
Did you film that in Oahu?
No, we were in Kauai.
Kauai. Okay, that's my
And
wife's
we went up
favorite
in the
island.
Honolulu Valley and literally paid a farmer to rip out his taro crop and plant a rice paddy to film
Wow.
that sequence where I picked that guy up and run through the mud.
Yeah, it's iconic.
And taro, see, rice paddies are shallow, right? They're like this. The roots are not very long. Taro crops are like that. So
Wow.
when you put your foot in it, you just sink almost to your knee.
Oh man.
And they had the stunt guys out there ahead of me trying to run through that rice paddy, where I throw that guy over my shoulder. There's a funny story about that too. But
Okay.
the stunt guys came back and said, "Yeah, this is going to be impossible." And then special effects guys were out there laying charges that were supposed to be incoming mortars all
Right.
over that field. And they're telling me, like, "Yeah, man, when you run, don't veer to the left too much because there's a big ass charge right
God.
there, and they can't mark it with a flag, right? It just
Yeah.
has to go."
Yeah.
And so the director comes over to me, Ted Kotcheff, and he's just a great guy. And he says, "I don't know if we're going to be able to shoot this, man. The stunt guys are saying we
Oh my
we
God.
can't do it. It's too hard." And I said, "Well, let me try. Let me try, man. I'm from Texas." And
Boots
he
on.
goes, well, okay. Well, the guy that they picked for me to carry and throw over my shoulder, I'm 5'11" on a good day. This dude was 6'3" and a half,
What? What?
and laying in the water in the mud when I have to pick him up. And I've
Yeah.
got an M16 in my hand.
Right.
And so I do it, and it's everything I can do just to actually pull my feet out of the suction of that mud.
Oh my
And
God.
I'm running, and I actually said, let's don't rehearse it, because let's just don't rehearse it. So they had the helicopters going and the smoke machines going and the whole thing going,
Wow.
and the explosive charges were set, and they said action, and I took off, and I'm running hard as I can run, just driving through it. And I get to this guy, and I'm thinking, man, I don't even know if I can pick this dude up. And I go, wham, and I throw him up over my shoulder, and I start running, and I'm staggering, right? And all of a sudden, a mortar charge goes.
Oh my God.
I had staggered to the left, so it blew me to the right.
Yeah.
And then the one on the right went, and that blew me back the other way. I mean, and they were massive. They were massive. And the guy that I'm carrying is screaming, "Holy shit, they're gonna kill us!" Right? And I'm saying, I'm just running, and I'm running, and I'm running, and and the helicopter comes and sets down on the levee, and there's that moment where I reach up for them like that, and they leave me.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
Ted Kotcheff came over to me, and I couldn't even breathe. I was puking. I was so exhausted, from it. And I mean, it was like physical exertion like I've never done. And he just came over and put his hand on my head like that, just put his hand on my head and said,
wow.
"Thank you," because they got it. And yeah, it was crazy.
Is that the take that's in the movie?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
We might have
wild.
done one pickup or two, but
Yeah, yeah.
most of that take was that one. And then, but the funny thing is, if I had the photo, I'd show it to you, but I don't have it with me. But
Maybe we can post it later, on
yeah,
our
there's the
social media.
poster of me running through that rice paddy with that guy over my shoulder, right?
Right.
And I've got the M16 and I'm grimacing and I'm running. So 9 months goes by. I'm driving through Westwood by UCLA.
Yeah.
The movie premiere is coming, and they are painting a mural on the side of a 3-story movie theater, starting at the boots at the bottom and painting upward. And every day I would go back and I'd park and I'd get out and I'd take a photo with a little Kodak Instamatic, throwaway camera.
Right.
And and I watched it go up and up and up and up, and I got to about right here, and I'm like, oh my God, that's my picture.
Oh,
I'm going to be on the side of a movie theater.
yeah.
And I go back on a few days later, and they were just finishing it, and they had photoshopped Tex Cobb's face
Oh,
on my body, and that's what that movie poster
that's what
is.
the poster is. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's me. And I've been telling everybody in my family and all my high school friends, dude, y'all aren't going to believe this. And I get there and I'm like, oh.
Meanwhile, you're like, it's the makeup they used for Eric Stoltz in
What?
Mask. That's the same they put. Oh no. Oh,
Isn't that crazy?
Randall Tex Cobb. Because
Crazy.
you're like, yeah, go back to LA, get on that plane, let him go.
The-
It's not his fault.
Life in
But
Hollywood, right? The
yeah,
life of an
oh,
artist.
do you have the original image?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you know if they ever made a theatrical poster that had your face on it?
I think they did, but I think it's in a foreign country. I just found it like last year, and in the wake of all the stuff going on in our family and life, I never
Yeah,
did go get it, but I'm gonna go get it.
you're gonna get it.
Yeah, I'm gonna get it.
You're gonna get it. You're gonna frame it, and then you're gonna send a picture to me because so I can. Wow, because this has to be continued with it for sure. There has to be. Wow, that is wild. That is
Isn't that
wild.
crazy?
Oh, I just think about the late night partying you guys might have done. Like somebody with like Tim Thomerson is in your group too.
Oh my God, that guy.
He's the funniest freaking guy. I love that guy.
I worked with Thomerson 2 or 3 times, and one was it was a detective thing that we did on television, and I was the guest star, and he came on as one of the co-stars, I think,
Was
and
it Private Eye? Private Eye.
I think it was.
Yeah, yeah. I like that show.
Oh my
Actually.
God, that you know who did that show?
No.
The co-creator of Miami Vice.
Oh, really?
That was his show, yes.
Not Michael Mann, but the other guy. Yeah, yeah.
The other guy, I can't think of his name right
Yeah, I'm
now.
blanking right
Yeah.
now too, but
But that show was cool.
it was really cool. Yeah.
So Thomerson is a guy getting out of his car and he's supposed to get gunned down, right? He's like a detective or something. And I mean, if you knew him, he's like, man, I got this idea, and here's what I'm going to do. I told the director, here's what I'm going to do. And I said, what'd you tell him you're going to do? And he goes, I'm going to do full on Steve McQueen. And I go, what? So he takes the shot and he spins himself like this. He goes, you know, and I go, is that McQueen? And he goes, yeah.
It's hilarious.
So flash forward 38 years or whatever it is, and I did the same thing to Quentin Tarantino on Django. When Jamie Foxx is going to kill me,
The dollar bill. Yeah.
I'm like almost dead from work on that movie. And
That.
I go, Quentin, I got an idea, man. He goes, what is it, man? What is it?
What is it, man?
And I go, when he hits me, I got to go full McQueen.
Okay.
Quentin goes, "Oh, I like that."
Oh man.
You got to just carry it forward, man.
Yeah, look, Thomerson made a career out of being an iconic. I am a huge Tim Thomerson fan and have met him a few times, and
Yeah.
nothing but the sweetest guy, and just a character and a stand-up comedian too.
Oh yeah, no, he's hysterically funny.
Yeah, yeah, he did a
Yeah.
whole bit once at a convention in the early 90s that I went to as a teenager, and I was like, whoa. So, well, if I ever see you in person, if we ever get to have a beer together or something, I'll pull a Steve McQueen on you, and
Yeah, do it, man. You got to do it.
that is wild. Yeah, I made a little reference to Mask because, again, and I lump you into that category. You're working with a star-studded cast. The bikers alone, badass. Besides Sam Elliott with his mustache, how was that experience working on Mask, Peter
Oh
Bogdanovich?
man, he's no longer with us, but
Yeah.
one of my closest friends was the guy that played Dozer, a guy named
Yes,
Dennis Berkeley.
I love
And
that guy. Rest in
Dennis and
peace.
I were like this, and I was really good on a motorcycle, so I've got a still photograph from that movie with Cher on the back of my bike and Rocky on the back of Dennis's bike, and Cher's got a beer can in her hand, and we're all laughing, and it's a great still photograph that the studio took, and we spent all day whenever we had 3 hours of a break, whether it was lunchtime or not, Sam and Dennis Berkeley and I would go fire up our Harleys and ride through Altadena and Pasadena and all that out there and
Oh,
just ride because Sam hadn't ridden a whole lot, but I had grown up with motorcycles and kind of showed Dennis how to do it, and
so
we
badass.
kept our colors on and the whole thing,
Yeah,
man. I mean,
man.
it was crazy fun.
I mean, you're probably the cleanest cut of all the biker gang, and that makes you stand out in a good way.
Right.
Because I'm like, this guy looks like a G.I. Joe character come to life. It's so
Well, I didn't have time to grow my hair too much longer, but and there was a guy in that movie. So Nick Cassavetes is in that movie.
he sure is. Yep.
And there was another guy. Somebody sent me a photograph recently of all of us, the whole cast, at a bike rally that was in that movie, kind of out in the woods somewhere.
Yeah.
There's a guy sitting on the ground fairly close to where I am. He had the hair down to about, here. And the girl that kind of took over my point at ICM back in those days was a girl named Sandy Dudek. And I'm still friends with Sandy today. She lives in Florida, but that's her brother. And
Oh,
Les Dudek played with like
the musician?
yes, that's her brother
Yeah, I
who's
know Les Dudek.
yeah, like phenomenal guitarist.
Yeah, I have
Yeah.
I have some of his stuff on vinyl, I think.
Yeah. That's who that is.
Wow, that's wild. That's wild.
I mean, Les Duda, and he was the coolest dude ever, right? I mean,
Yeah.
he didn't care about acting at all, and
Oh,
we were
hell
all
no.
trying to like showboat with our Harley.
Well, you're hungry, you're very fresh in Hollywood still, and
Yeah,
you're working with A-list, directors and actors who have a resume that, Cher and Sam Elliott, like the resume up until that point was pretty extensive already. And here you are coming in. It must have been amazing. Like,
yeah,
what
it
talk about
was.
experiences working together. Um, there is so much to there's so much to cover, but I want to jump ahead a little bit because offline I had mentioned my father, Don Schaefer, and he listens to the show, and he's a former Navy SEAL, former frogman. He was in UDT 21, and he
Yeah.
and firefighter for Southfield, Michigan, and badass, all around badass. He's a hero of mine. Um, meanwhile, the guys in Mask, by the way, my stepfather, who's another hero of mine, like reminded me of the guys my stepfather hung out with back in the day when my mom first was dating him. I'm like, what is this? This is kind of shady, but I kind of like it. And listening to Little Feat and Allman Brothers Band and all sorts of stuff. But my dad, Don, he was a Navy SEAL, and your family, you come from a naval background as well, right?
I do. My dad was a fighter pilot. Flew jets off a carrier. I was
Wow.
actually born uh, in San Diego, near what is now a Marine Air Station, but at the time it was Miramar, which is where Top Gun was filmed.
Right.
And there's a photo somewhere of me, my dad holding me in within the perimeter of the air base as the Blue Angels are taking off in the background, and
Oh,
I'm like 8 weeks old.
wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's
So
wild.
I very nearly went to the Naval Academy. I did go to a military academy, which is a prep school, a great one, New Mexico Military Institute in Roswell, New
In
Mexico.
Roswell. Wow. Okay.
Roger Staubach went there, and a
Wow.
lot of people went there. And then Staubach went to the Naval Academy from there. But I put in to, you have to go through a member of Congress to get referred into a service academy.
Okay.
And I did because I thought, man, I want to fly jets off carrier. And I'd gone to 2 years of junior college at this military school, and I got picked as the first alternate. There was a guy ahead of me that got picked. And I thought, okay, well, then I'm going to go back to the University of Texas and finish up there and do it. As I was finishing my junior year, is when I visited that movie set for the first time that day and felt that tap on my shoulder and heard that voice and pulled off the highway, not knowing what was in front of me.
Yep.
And I got like within several days before that, I'd gotten notified that that guy had dropped out and that I was now the choice to go to the Naval Academy. And
Wow.
yeah, but I would have had to start over. I'd just gone through being a plebe for 2 years, at a military
Yeah.
academy, and I would have had to start over as a freshman again, do it all over again. And the calculation that I made was that, and I had to think about it because I really wanted to go be a jet pilot. And but to go through the Naval Academy and actually get jets, you have to be top of your class in math and engineering and all of that.
Yeah.
And at the University of Texas, I was very mediocre in any of that kind of thing. But in communications, I aced everything, made straight A's in all of it.
Of course you
And
did.
I thought the calculation I made was, I could go do this and owe the Navy 6 years and end up in a fucking submarine. Or sorry, if I
No,
shouldn't
you can
speak.
swear all you want. It's all good.
But, and that was my calculation. And within about 3 days, I visited that movie set and I heard that voice and I went, this is where I'm going.
Hell yeah.
And I did. And, that was 6 days. It was 6 days before the end of my junior year.
That's wild.
And it's a whole different story. We can do that another time, but
Yeah,
because
I'm already like,
we
we're
didn't
doing
really
part
talk
two.
about we didn't really talk about Horizon, but in terms of your dad and it leads me to talk about this movie that I've written that I'm going to direct. It's going to be my directorial debut, and it's on the front burner right now. I already got the first chunk of money committed to it, a large
Fantastic.
one,
Great.
and this I think I did the script right. You know, lots of heavy hitting actors coming my way right now.
Awesome.
And, Kevin Costner and I talked about it in Utah when we were filming. He goes, listen, buddy, you are not the average first time film director. You've got almost 80 film credits.
Right.
You've worked with many of the finest directors in Hollywood
Yep.
in your career, and you've glued yourself to me for the last 2 years.
Yeah. I'd
You
say the other way
idiot.
around, but whatever.
He's like, idiot, you're killing me, man. And and it's true. When I got to Utah in 2022 to start Horizon, and I did this before when he directed me the first time on a movie called The Postman.
Yeah.
Uh,
Love
I
that
glued
movie.
myself to him then because somehow intrinsically I knew, even back then, 20 something years ago, that this is where I was going. And Kevin didn't remember this, but I reminded him, and I should tell this. 34 years ago, Kevin sat me down and said, "Hey, buddy, congratulations, man. You did it. It's really hard to do." And I said, "What did I do?" And he goes, "You're a movie star. Really hard to do it. Congrats." I said, "Man, thank you. That means a lot coming from you." And he goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Ride the ride. It's a lot of fun. Ride the ride. Date all the girls. Do all the shit."
Right.
He goes, "But that's not why you're here."
Right.
And I go, "What do you mean, man?" At that time, I didn't own the rights to any books or any stories. I'd never written a script. I've now written 8. I own 32 film and TV projects in my
Awesome.
company.
Awesome.
And I'm a bit like the tortoise, man. I'm keep a steady pace, but I like to win the race, you know?
Right.
And so he said to me, "It's going to take you a while because you haven't figured it out yet, but you're really gifted storyteller, and you're going to write some stuff, and it's all going to be good. I know it will be, but you're going to wait. And when you're about 60, you're going to write a script, and you're going to know that it's the one. And when you know that it's the one, you're going to choose that one to direct."
Wow.
Yeah, 34 years ago.
34 years ago.
And so you talk about a
I got
visionary
chills.
guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's who he is, man. And, I paraphrased some of that right
Of
there,
course. Yeah.
but Kevin and we had that chat in Utah, and he goes, "Man, I forgot we had that conversation." I go, "Yeah, I've never forgotten any of them."
No, how could you? You're like, I didn't forget.
So I've learned so much from that guy, and I really did. When I got to Utah, I said, "Buddy, if I ever get too close or I'm in your way, just give me the look, but I'm going to direct. I found the one, and I'm going to direct it. And I'm still writing it right now, but it's the one. I know it already." And he goes, "Okay." And so I was never in my trailer. I was always on that set. And I have been my whole career, man. I've never been an actor waiting for somebody to knock on my door. Never.
No, no. You strike me as the kind of guy that, I'm not comparing you to myself in any way, but I've always valued, especially as a father, I've always told my son it's important to, you know, be kind, be good, be a good person, reach out to people and talk to people, communicate.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
only way you're going to get to know somebody. And also, if you're a likable person, people are going to want to be around you.
Yeah.
I'm the same way with, I was a teacher for 15 years as a kindergarten teacher and then segued into doing what I'm doing now. But everything is, every connection I've made is because of I was being who I am, just myself and a kind person and a nice person.
I talk to everybody.
Yeah, you
I
do.
talk to
Well,
everybody.
clearly, and you're talking to me, so, I don't feel so
But
bad.
but even back on Silverado, as green as I was,
Right.
green as I was always in I was always on the set, even on my days off, in my street clothes. I was on that set, standing next to Larry Kasdan and Kevin and the producers, because when there was a problem that needed to be solved, I would sidle up to them and act like I was looking at something else. And, and I wanted to hear how they solved it.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Right.
And so I've always thought that way. I've
That's
always
so
thought that.
important.
And, it's, I can't wait to start shooting this movie, man. I'm going to shoot this fall if everything works right. And so to your dad, I really wrote this movie for him, because it's never been a political exercise for me. It's a personal exercise. I've supported veterans' causes and their families and the children of fallen soldiers my whole career,
Mm,
loudly and
yeah.
vocally, because my uncle fought in Vietnam as a Marine officer and was dropped into the city of Hue in North Vietnam on the day before Christmas as a Marine second lieutenant, and the Christmas Day was the launch of the Tet Offensive in the city of Hue,
Wow.
where the life expectancy of a Marine second lieutenant in that battle was 14 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, he lost a bunch of friends, and and he went on to come back and lead a very successful life, was an assistant U.S. attorney in
Oh,
Southern
that's
California.
great.
But so I'm really doing it for my uncle and my dad and people like your dad.
Yeah.
And so this movie is called 6 Mile Creek. And it's another instance of hearing a voice and feeling a tap on my shoulder. I was coming back from West Texas at 100 miles an hour trying to make my middle daughter's birthday. And I'd been on a 3-day drunken dove hunt with a bunch of William Morris founders,
Okay.
literally, and their clients, writers and directors. And they'd been begging me for 8 years to go. And I finally went, okay, okay, I'll go. I didn't, in Texas, you grow up and you learn how to hunt. But when I moved to LA, I didn't hunt for 40 something years.
No,
And
no
these
one hunts
guys,
out here.
right, right. These guys were begging me. And so I finally went, I'll go. So I'm in West Texas, 100 miles an hour, trying to get back for a birthday party. I get detoured off the freeway onto a 2-lane West Texas deserted highway.
Oh
No
no.
town, no gas station, desert, dry creek bed, mountains in the distance.
Oh,
Sun directly overhead. It's about 50 degrees, blue skies. I'm hauling ass. I pass a road sign, a beat up road sign that says 6 Mile Creek. And I go, I, I, I felt that tap and I heard that voice and I went, that's the name of a movie. And I found myself pulled over and out of the car and I climbed over these rocks and I'm down in this creek bed and about 100 yards down, I can see um, an abandoned ranch house on a bluff that's abandoned, sitting up above that creek bed.
okay.
And a hawk flew 2 feet over my head and went like that down that creek bed.
Wow.
And a jolt of electricity went through my body. And I literally looked up at the sun and I went, this is the one.
Wow.
This is the one. And I got back in my car and I had 4 hours left to make it to that birthday party at 100 miles an hour. And I wrote 6 Mile Creek, start to finish, every character, every line of dialogue, picked where I'm going to put the camera, picked the music, beginning, middle, and end, the whole thing as I pulled into my driveway 4 hours later. And I never made a note, never took a note.
Wow.
And it took me 3.5 years to actually sit down and open up my computer and start to write it. And I did it on a 9-hour flight to Rome. And you know what screenwriting is. Normally on
Yeah,
a
yeah.
on a fast day, somebody may write 10 pages.
Right.
Maybe, right? Usually it's 2 to 7 to 10 in a day of writing. I had 9 hours nonstop to Rome. My wife and I were on opposite sides of first class, couldn't sit together. Walk over, gave her a kiss, said, I'll see you in Rome, put my headsets on and went, today is my day. And I cracked
Hell yeah.
open that computer and I wrote nonstop, ate my meals while I was still writing, headphones on. And in a 9-hour flight, they were yelling at me to put my laptop away because the wheels were about to set down in Rome. And I was still going. And I finally just closed it like that, right? And I had written 37 pages in a
Wow.
9-hour flight.
Amazing.
It just
Yeah, you
blew
just
out of me.
oh.
So this whole movie is the one. It's a gift. It's a gift from God, really. And it's about a veteran with PTSD, highly decorated Marine. And, he wrecks his Harley on page 2 because he passes a road sign in the middle of nowhere that says 6 Mile Creek and goes around a corner and the sun is setting and the shadows are long and the headlamp is on. And all of a sudden his eyes flash up to something in the road and he has no choice but to lay that motorcycle down. And it's dark at this point. It's
Of
getting
course.
dark, right?
Yeah.
The sun is setting. So I know how I'm going to shoot it with sparks. It's going to be very magical, right? And so I want that. But it's a very realistic movie. It's very realistic. And most people think it reads like a modern day Western, and it does. It does. And he hits those rocks that I climbed over that day, and he and the motorcycle goes up first, and he goes up second. Crash lands in that creek, and the headlamp is shining up in a dead tree, and you hear the horn going dee 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 dee, and I left a little bit out, but this is on page two.
This I captivated.
And a woman and her 17-year-old daughter who saw him come through the town 6 miles before and made eye contact with him because he revved his throttle at the stop sign, and it spooks this 17-year-old girl, and she goes like that. And nobody's said a word at this point. It's just white lines striping by you, and the sound of a Harley and him pulling up to a stop sign in this tiny little West Texas town. And he mimes to the girl like, I'm sorry, right? He mimes it.
Yeah.
The music is loud country rock, because
Nice.
he's been blowing down the highway on a Harley.
Yeah.
And if I have my way, it's going to be Chris Hemsworth because I wrote it for him.
Okay.
So we'll see. But
I mean, you got that magic touch, it sounds like. So
anyway, he wrecks. He's laying in the creek bed at an odd angle. There's a big pool of blood under. It should have killed him.
yeah, yeah.
But it's Thor. So so that their truck turns onto the dirt road that goes up to that ranch house I saw that day, and that's where that mother and daughter live.
No.
And they find him in the creek and save his life. And the short version is, after he gets out of the hospital, the ticking clock of the movie is how long is it going to take to fix the Harley in this one horse town, right?
Right.
And it's going to take weeks, right? They got to send the frame off to Midland to get straightened. And
Yeah.
so he gets out of the hospital, and the sheriff has taken him to the Motel 6, and he says, man, would you take me out to where I wrecked? And he goes, yeah. So he does. And he's in a boot, a cast on his arm. He's got stitches down here. I mean, there's a huge pool of blood that was under his body that night.
Right.
And now there's a trench through it because the tow truck pulled that motorcycle out of that creek bed, and it cut a canyon through his blood stain, which you can still see. And he's standing there looking over the rocks and looking at his blood stain. And the sheriff says, it should have killed you, buddy. You're really lucky. And they hear the sound of a truck. And he turns, and it's the mom and the daughter turning onto their roadway. And he looks, and they had come to the hospital to bring his duffel bag that was on his bike. But he was in and out of consciousness and didn't really speak to him. And so he hobbles over to the truck, and takes off his glasses and introduces himself. And, says, everybody tells me that I wouldn't be here if it weren't for you two. So, thank you. And he introduces himself. Long story short, they invite him up for lemonade. The girl does. She's very precocious, and based 1000% on my daughter, Shelby.
Oh,
And he ends up living in the bunk room in a rundown barn because he's based a lot on me. I grew up with a ranch in Texas, and I knew how to fix the tractor and cut the hay and, deliver a baby calf, and I could do all these things. And he knows how to do this.
that's awesome.
So he lives in the bunk room, and as soon as he is mobile, he says, I can help fix this place up because it's really run down. And they are wildly out of place on this ranch, the two women. And he doesn't know why, and the audience doesn't know why. I'll just jump forward because we're long here, man. But
It's all good.
They're in witness protection.
Oh,
And the
love it.
evil, wealthy, powerful ex-husband and stepfather from Chicago is trying to find them and kill the girl.
Wow.
And the audience doesn't know it, and the veteran doesn't know it. And every time he tries to say, why doesn't she have a driver's license? Why doesn't she have a phone? The mom shuts him down. And he goes, I'm sorry, it's not my business, right? And so, these relationships and these bonds develop, and he takes the girl to get her driver's license, her permit photo, without asking permission.
Oh no.
It hits the grid, and that's how they find him.
Because this is in 1990.
Bad guys come, and He he's highly decorated, wounded multiple times based on a real Marine that I worked with. He also suffers from survivor's guilt because he was the only one of his Marines that made it out of this particular battle.
Mm,
So when I go to the flashbacks to show you why he has PTSD, it's a real battle that
wow.
really happened. And I'm not going to do one of those establishing shots that goes, oh, outskirts of Kabul in
Right.
Afghanistan. The moment I go into it, you're in the room. They've all got 5 bullet holes in them already, and bullets are going boom, 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 and all of them are getting hit, and they're down to their last 3 rounds of ammo.
Oh my
And
God.
it is a full-on, in-your-face like thing.
Wow.
And I go back to it 3 times in the movie, and each time I go a little bit further. And at the end of it, he throws himself on a grenade, which the real guy did. So his midsection is shredded and scarred, and he's got bullet holes all over him, and the girls, when he gets better at the ranch and he's able to walk, and he walks down in 6 Mile Creek every day. And there's a line in there. The reason I'm going so long about this, I wrote a line recently where he talks about why he does it. And it's a lot like life, and it's a lot like combat. You really don't know what's around the next corner. So you have to be ready all the time. And she goes, well, when he goes, when I started, I didn't get very far. And she goes, and now it's been a couple, 3 weeks. And she goes, well, how about now? And he goes, well, I made it all the way to town today. And she goes, dude, seriously, that's 6 miles.
Wow.
And he goes, yeah. And that's when he says, yeah, it's a lot like life, a lot like combat. And sometimes it's that last mile, that 6th mile, which is the hardest of all. And there's a reason behind that. But I'm going to play a kind of a legendary Texas Ranger that comes to his aid.
Oh, good. I don't want to see you as a villain anymore. So
No, no, no. But and I just rewrote it the other day, and this will tie back to what we talked about in the very beginning of this, man. It's always been super important to me that the message of the movie is you got to pay attention to that voice.
yeah.
You got to pay attention. And no one actually said it in the movie. And I thought, who better than me? So I wrote my Texas Ranger into a scene, and I walk up to him at the end of the movie, and I take off my shades, and I'm talking to him, and I go, listen, buddy. And along the way, these bonds have developed between the girl and him in a father-daughter way. And, his wife had left him and because she couldn't deal with PTSD, and took his daughter, and he hadn't seen his daughter in 7 years, and she's
Mm,
now 13. And so all of this is going on. Um, and he also has fallen for the mother, and she for him. And they're both suffering from PTSD too. And I show you these little
I'm sure.
snippets, right?
Yeah, that makes
And
sense.
anyway, I walk up to him at the end of the movie and go, "Hey, buddy, I saw you loading your Harley in the trailer to come out here because he's going to leave."
Yeah.
And I go, "Listen, man, for what it's worth, we don't get a lot of second chances in life, especially people like you and me, because I'm a veteran too in the movie." And I tell him, I'm paraphrasing here, but I tell him, it's when you hear that voice, man, and you feel that tap on your shoulder, that's when you got to pay attention,
Mm,
because that's the truth coming at you. And you know, if I were you, I'd think really fucking hard before I rode this motorcycle away from these two today. And that's what I came to tell you. And it's a really powerful moment. I wrote it better than that. I wrote it better than that. So I'm just paraphrasing it,
no,
but
I feel it though, man. I
it's
feel it.
powerful, man. This movie is everything I want to say about family, love, the power of grace and redemption, and listening to that voice and overcoming our innermost fears and our biggest obstacles. And, this movie is, I don't particularly like the way Hollywood portrays these guys, especially those with PTSD, very
Right.
much.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, a few exceptions, Lone Survivor and things like that,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
and 13 hours and stuff like
Yeah.
that. But by and large, these guys are portrayed to either be serial killers, rapists, drug dealers, human traffickers, or something else.
Right.
I take a guy that suffers from PTSD, survivor's guilt, highly decorated, but in massive pain and struggle. And I make him overcome his demons in order to save the lives of the two people he comes to love.
Mm.
And that's the centerpiece of the story.
Well, I just want to say that when the movie premieres here in Los Angeles, I'm hoping you'll save a ticket for me. Uh,
Yeah.
because I knew before we even had this interview, I knew this was going to be powerful, and I knew having you on was going to be worth every moment because we
Uh,
went back and forth for quite some time to get
I
you on
know,
the
man.
show, and I just knew it, Todd. So I have so much gratitude of what you just shared. Your story, this story, 6 Mile Creek, it just sounds wonderful. I cannot wait. I cannot wait to hear more as the process continues. And
Yeah.
I can feel it, man. Like my wife is usually the one who goes, I got goosebumps. I got goosebumps. That I could feel it as you were telling me. I was just like, oh my God, yeah, this is
Yeah.
happening. So
Yeah. It's quite something, man. And I'm grateful that I waited. I'm grateful that I waited and chose this to be the one because now I've got, 6 others I want to do, but I'm doing this one first.
well,
And
yeah. I'm sure my dad will love it. I'm sure I will too, but it takes me back to that story you told about Joel Schumacher and waiting just overnight before you called him and look what happened. There's a beauty in listening to your instincts, but also taking a breath and giving yourself a moment before you act, figuratively and literally. you know, I think it's a wonderful thing, man, and it's a
thank
testament.
you.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah,
you.
I really do. I really do.
I'm doing a little tiny little polish on this script for like the 20th time. But it wakes me up, it wakes me up in the
Yeah.
middle of the night and I get up and start working on it. But I'm doing a tiny little thing on it and I'm about 80% done with it. And when I'm done with it, I'll send you the script.
I cannot wait to read it, and I cannot wait to have a part two with you on this conversation because there's so much that we didn't even talk
I
about.
know, dude. An hour ago, you asked me to talk about Horizon, and
Well,
we,
yeah,
we
but
talked about
look,
Silverado.
my buddy Corey, my buddy Corey and I do a podcast called Podcasting After Dark, where we break down a movie scene by scene, right? And we broke down the movie Witchboard years ago. And Corey was like, you got to ask him if he still likes the song "Bump in the Night." And I'm like, I don't even know if he likes the song to begin with, but I think Kevin Tenney, like that was his band or whatever, did that
That
song
was
"Bump."
his brother's band,
Brothers band. That's right. Anyways,
Dennis. Yes.
yeah.
And I'm still friends with Kevin, and he's a great guy. And that was such an experience for me. And interestingly, to just tie this back,
Yeah, yeah.
I I was not yet in a position to be the star of a movie,
Okay.
right?
Right.
But I had Silverado in the can,
Okay.
in the can,
Okay.
and I went in to audition for Witchboard. And they had really cast a girl named Deborah Foreman who had done
Yeah, Valley Girl, and
Valley
she,
Girl. It was
yeah,
Valley Girl,
that was her
right?
big one. Yeah.
And she was going to be the star of the movie.
Oh,
And
wow. Okay.
when I came in and did it, and Kevin Tenney had written that script and said, I said, well, are we good? And he goes, yeah, man. So then he chased me down the hall. He chased me down the hall and he grabbed me and he said, buddy, I wrote a lot of this character's sense of humor based on my own, which is all sarcasm. And he goes, you're the only actor, and we've read 30 bigger stars than you. You're the only one that understood it and delivered the sarcasm without being an asshole. And I went, well, good, man. So they cast me the next day, and then I came back in and read actresses because Deborah Foreman backed out because my name was going to go first.
Oh,
She thought hers should. I probably shouldn't say these things, but what the hell?
yep.
But
It's okay.
so I read Tawny Katane. I read with Tawny, and she just set the room on fire, and everything around her. And we
Yeah.
all just were like, oh, oh, please cast her. So,
Yeah.
so, uh, but man, I learned so much on that movie. I learned that when you're the lead actor in a movie, and Kevin had begun to try to teach me this on Silverado, like
Kevin Costner. Yeah. Yeah.
Kevin Costner, it all flows downhill from you. The crew takes their input from you. The tone is even set with you.
Yeah.
Sometimes not the director, you. And so I put that on my shoulders on Silverado, and I kept that set really fun. And a lot of jokes, a lot of laughs. Kevin is very funny too. So, and just I took that mantle, and and I finished filming that movie, and I knew this, okay, things are different now again. Like, I can do this.
Yeah.
I got this.
Yeah.
So
And I mean, I love Witchboard. I think it's a lot of fun, and I think that Bump in the Night song is fantastic, by the way. So,
yeah. Well, they've just remade it.
Witchboard?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Is it
And
out?
an actor that's in Horizon who steals most everything he's in movie one, Jamie Campbell Bower,
Okay.
is the lead in the new Witchboard.
Oh, what?
Yes.
Mind blown. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, if you're not in it, I'm not going to go see it. No, I'm kidding.
Well, I wanted to do it, but I was shooting Horizon, but I was working with the original producer of that movie, both of them, for the last, couple of years before I started in Utah on Horizon,
Uh-huh.
because I thought, and Tawny was, bless her heart, was still
Yes.
alive.
Yeah.
And I came up with a great idea to how to do a sequel where it's our college age daughter that gets sucked into the thing, right?
It's Bright itself. Yep.
Right. And we wouldn't be in it as much as the girl would be, but it was still a great way to bring me and Tawny back in a sequel, a true sequel.
Yeah.
And we were talking about it, and then Tawny died, so
Oh
we all
man.
stopped.
Yeah, and I'm glad they're remaking it. I hope it's good. I'm sure it'll be very fun. But nothing
It,
compares to you. You're such a badass in that movie. And I'm like, Stephen Nichols is such a douchebag in that it's not him the actor, but his character, Brandon. He's such a douchebag. And I'm like, I talked about this with Corey. I'm like, I've been in situations where um an ex has shown up and with my current girl, and I'm like, this is so awkward. And like, she's looking at him like, oh my God, we had so much fun together. And I'm like, yeah, you did, right? You used to have fun together. And I'm like, this freaking guy, this fucking guy, like,
but he played that
oh,
character
it's
really
great.
well.
Yeah,
I mean,
no, it's, yeah,
because he was a little smarmy. He
he's
was a
supposed to
little,
be. Yeah.
he was just the hair, the coif, the whole
That
thing.
to we're already a little blue in this, that fucking hair, like, and you're such a badass with like blue collar worker. I love it. But anyways, Todd, I feel like you and I could keep going for a couple more hours, and I would love it if you come back on the show and talk more.
Oh man, happy to do it.
Awesome.
Happy to do
We
it.
didn't even get a chance to talk about the fact that you go by TA sometimes, and I'm like, well, Magnum TA was one of my all-time favorite wrestlers, and we didn't get to talk about the Von Erichs in Texas or Terry Funk and all that stuff. But
Oh my God. Yeah, man. Uh, there's a whole bunch of stuff I can talk about. I'm actually going to write a book.
you will make it happen, just like 6 Mile Creek will become a reality. It's already there. It's moving along. It's gonna happen. I know it is. I know it is. I feel it. The universe does work in mysterious ways. And when it does click and everything aligns the way it's supposed to, you feel it. And I felt it in this interview with you. So thank you, Todd, for coming on
Yeah.
and talking about your career, what's to come, and looking forward to part 2.
Well, thank you very much, Zach. I enjoyed it, buddy. Same for me, man. I went into some territory I didn't expect to go into today, but um, when your gift is you make people feel comfortable enough to do that. So thank you.
It's my pleasure. I have that effect on people. All right, till next time.
All right, buddy.